Hi, and welcome to another episode of Newspaper Article Lucky Dip. If you're hearing noises in the background of this one, it's because both the boys are in with me already and getting up to mischief. They've already tried mountain climbing my setup here, and I'm terrified they're just going to pull everything off, but we'll see how far we get through this. So, once again, no trigger warnings for this. I don't know what we're getting. It could be literally anything that's been reported in any era of our history on any subject. And it's got to have been something that's interesting enough it's caught my eye. So we'll get into this and we'll find out where this one takes us. We've not had too many negative or awful stories so far, have we? I think there was a decapitation that I remember at least. Fingers crossed for no decapitations, unless you're into that kind of thing. You going to help me? We're going to see what we get. What do we think this one is? Nay? We've got the Greenock Advertiser for the 3rd of February 1846 to start us off. So, in the time it took me to look up this article to find out what we were going to be finding out a wee bit about, Elfie has managed to kill the lamp. I'm not sure how. Hopefully fix for next time. So, I'm sorry we've lost a light source. But we'll get into this. Now, this article doesn't give very much away. No, I'm going to have to take you down. This article doesn't give very much away. It just tells us, singular discovery, Kirkpartic, Durham, 26th of January. We had rather a strange occurrence here a few days ago, which will perhaps be worthy of notice. An old man died at Crocketford named Andrew Innes, aged 75, the last of a sect of the Buckenites, of whose history your readers generally will be acquainted. The Buckenites were a cult originating in the late 1700s by an Elspeth Simpson, Elspeth Buchan, claimed to be the woman clothed with the sun, who was a character mentioned in the Book of Revelations. She managed to get a fair few followers on board her cause. So the first to convert to that faith was Elspeth Simpson, who died 54 years ago, and it was supposed she was buried about Auchengibbert in the parish of Ur until within this last year. Since old Andrew became infirm, some people began to suspect he had her body in the house ever since her death. But it remained a secret until Wednesday last when he died, and her body was then found in a dark room, wrapped up in blankets, lying in an old box. From the testimony of individuals who examined the body minutely, it appears it was decayed almost to a skeleton, but the skin was whole, and the hair apparently fresh and of a sandy colour. Andrew visited it every day as long as he was able to go upstairs, expecting she would again rise according to promise, as explained in Nicholson's History of Galloway, and he left orders with his trustees that he and she were both to be buried in one grave, and she undermost. Chorus correspondent. We believe that Mr. Train's account of the Buckenites from first to last is nearly ready for the press, and it is expected that much light will be thrown on the eccentricities of the members of this defunct sect, once the wonder of the lower parts of Galloway. And that's from the Galloway Advertiser, as related in the Greenock Advertiser for the 3rd of February 1846. That has a few correlations more recently, though, hasn't it? In South Colorado, there was a cult. I think they were called Love Has Won, or Love Will Win, or something like that. Their leader had died, and I think the sect had kept her body on the understanding that maybe she hadn't actually died, or she was going to reincarnate, or and a Japanese family in England whose sister just seemed to stop eating for a really long, and then never come out her bedroom. And her brother and sister started to get used to taking orders from her. Like the house had to be completely silent all the time. She wasn't to be disturbed. She was on the cusp of making some kind of discovery, or I'm not sure, but she'd apparently died some time ago, and they had been cleaning her body constantly and I think slowly embalming it, possibly on the understanding that maybe she had found the key to eternal life, or she was going to be reincarnated or what have you. So that's a bit of a strange story from 1846, isn't it, to start with? We'll see what the next one has for us. If you're hearing noises outside, it's the kittens. They're in one of their more boisterous moods at the moment. Like, they're just running amok. So, second up, we have from the Aberdeen People's Journal for the 26th of January, 1884. And we'll see what this has for us. Well, this is very short, and it goes along with the project for gender fluidity within Scottish history. So we have a person who has lived for 20 years in Belfast under the name of John Coulter died in Belfast Royal Hospital on Sunday from an accident. The deceased was then found to be a woman who had disguised her sex. That's from the Aberdeen People's Journal for the 26th of January 1884, and well done to her for never having been found out, I guess. She must have done a good job of her guising. We'll see what the next one has. We have the North British Agriculturist for the 29th of October, 1851. I wonder what the Agriculturist has for us. Okay, so this is a good Halloween story, I guess, from just 2 days prior to Halloween, 1851. So we have narrow escape from being buried alive. One of those unusual circumstances has occurred during the last few days by which a highly respectable female was nearly consigned to a living tomb. Mrs. Benham of Marlborough Street, Chelsea, had been for some time past under medical treatment for an internal disease, Mr. Ford, a surgeon residing in the neighbourhood, being her medical attendant. On Saturday afternoon week, she fell into a state of stupor, and so completely were all the functions of the body suspended, and remained so during Monday and Tuesday, that everyone about her thought she was dead. Preparations were accordingly made for her funeral, and a coffin taken to the house of the supposed deceased, about 5 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon. The surgeon was in attendance at the time, when, strange to say, symptoms of reanimation in Mrs. Benham became visible. The coffin was sent back to the place from when it came, and the lady was very slowly restored to consciousness. She is still exceedingly debilitated, but said to be gradually recovering. That's from the Globe, really, in the North British Agriculturist for the 29th of October, 1851. That was always a great fear, was being buried alive. People in comas and these stupors could seem very much dead, and like it says, all the functions of the body were so completely suspended, and how can you tell without modern machinery that there's no brain activity, that there's no heart activity, So, yeah, I can understand the fear of being buried alive. That's natural. I wouldn't even consider that a phobia, because it was a very real fear at one point. We'll have a last one, since our second was so short. Let's see what we get. Just hearing the sounds of destruction outside. We have from the Dundee, Perth and Coupar Advertiser for the 8th of May, 1849. And this will finish us. So we have another one that's very apt for Halloween. We have a Westmorland ghost story. The Westmorland Gazette of Saturday inserts the following singular communication. Much excitement has of late prevailed amongst the inhabitants of Orton and its vicinity in consequence of some singular disturbances which have recently occurred at Coupar House near Orton. The name of the present occupier is Mr. William Gibson, Jr., who, about 4 years ago, married a daughter of Mr. John Bland, Bybeck. A year previous to his marriage, Mr. Gibson's uncle, Robert Gibson, occupied the same place with whom his nephew lived, and, singular to relate, these unaccountable disturbances commenced on Tuesday the 17th ultimo, being the 5th anniversary of his uncle's death, who was found drowned near the house. Tuesday the 17th, loud knocks were heard in the house. Various articles placed on the shelves fell on the floor in rapid succession, which alarmed the inmates. Wednesday, 11:30 a.m, 2 children's stools placed in the cradle were thrown out, and the cradle clothes thrown under the fire grate. The chairs moved on the floor of their own accord, with the exception of one which was lately purchased in a sale, and went over with great velocity. The churn, standing on the floor, was upset. The churn works were set into the outer porch, out of which into the house is a crooked passage. The servant girl, on going out, met the churn works coming in like the flight of a bird, and fell near the churn without being injured. The young girl's cries on this occasion were alarming. Tables containing dishes were thrown off. Fenders, knives, pans, tubs, butter, and almost every other article the house contained were in wild commotion one after the other. The inmates were so alarmed that they took some provisions and proceeded to Mr. Robert Boosfield's, a neighbouring house, and had some tea. They returned in the evening, accompanied by Mr. Blousfield, who is an upright person and may be relied on. Similar disturbances again commenced. Mr. Blousfield, being horrified, advised the family to go with him and stay all night, which was accordingly done. Next day, Thursday, the family, which consists of Mr. William Gibson, his wife, 2 children and a servant girl, returned to the house, when nothing particular occurred until the afternoon. Mrs. Gibson's brother, Mr. Thomas Bland of Bybeck, paid them a visit. When about to sit down to tea, Mr. Bland placed his hat on a dining table, when it immediately took flight towards the fireplace. Clothes and other articles moved about in the house, and Mr. Bland, being much affrighted, thought they had all better proceed to Bybeck. They did so, and there they are present remaining. These things were soon published, and on Saturday the 21st, a company of young men from Orton proceeded to Coupar House to ascertain the fact. The family not being there, nothing particular transpired. On Tuesday last, Mr. James Elwood, grocer, Mr. Tarbuck, surgeon, Mr. Robert Wilson, Jr., and Mr. John Robertson, joiner, Mr. Mark Atkinson, and Mr. R. Bland, all of Orton, proceeded to Bybeck, to see if the family would accompany them to Coupar House. They consented and went in order to explore this strange occurrence. They arrived at the spot a little before the family and searched every corner of the house in order to find out the cause, but found none. But, to their astonishment, no sooner did the family enter than loud knocks were heard, their hats were moved from one place to another, a large dining table moved from its place into the middle of the floor, and, as before, one thing after another was in disorder and moved about of its own accord. What can be the precise meaning of this, we are at present unable to determine. Some are of opinion that something has been done which is very wrong, or it is a forewarning of some great evil. It is the worst when the children are in the house. I have no explanation for any of that. We weren't there, we're not seeing video footage or photos or anything. So it's just a good ghost story for us coming up to Halloween. So there we go. I I'm sorry for the cats if you were hearing them throughout. They've been on the go a lot this evening. I think they had a little much to eat because they've got a lot of energy. So we may see you for the next one. Take care. Really? How did you even turn that off? Oh, okay. We're going to leave it turned off for time being then.